Hi, I'm live. Um, I'm having a hard time getting used to the change in sleep-wake cycle, just even with the 1 hour time change. I think just all of a sudden it's time for my life to just settle down. And I don't know if you live on adrenaline a lot and then suddenly the adrenaline's worn off and you're done, and things can be a little shocking, I guess. So I have been unpacking this morning. I heard an interview this a couple hours ago with a guy who runs a his name's Shepard. He has a website in telehub.com, and he was talking about how often we don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. I'm sorry I'm so washed out. I'm sitting in front of the window, which I will not do tomorrow. I was just trying to find a place that didn't have major mess in front of me and behind me. So sorry about the washout. I forgot to add. No, I'm ready for Elly. She just hasn't gotten here yet. He talked about a lot of the reason we went into Iraq in the Iraq War was we were looking for, before ISIS destroyed everything, we were trying to get information that the Sumerians knew. And he was saying that there's a lot of things happening in the sky right now. Tomorrow, there are some major asteroids that are going to be whizzing by the Earth, and they're unsure whether they will just keep on going or stop, hit the Earth. And then on the 29th, there's a 2.5 mile wide asteroid that's going to be 16 lunar distances from the Earth, but that's pretty close for a 2.5 mile wide asteroid, and whether their distancing is accurate. And this guy was also mentioning that this COVID-19 pandemic is a rehearsal, and that FEMA camps are continuing to be put up, and that maybe what they are preparing for and using this as an excuse is to prepare for how to deal with the public if something major from the heavens came and struck the earth and caused some major damages. It was an interesting interview to listen to. Paul Begley interviewed him in his second hour of his show today. You can see Paul Begley on YouTube. Begley. He had Shepard on during the second hour of his show. So if you go and listen, that's just go to the second half. I hope none of you were affected by the tornadoes that came through yesterday. Here, the storm wasn't. I'm not even sure that we got anything at all. I did hear that there was part of Arkansas that was hit by the tornado. I don't know which part, and I know, I can think, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia definitely were hit. Gloria, I'm jealous that you could do that while you're listening to this show. When I moved, the intention was, when I was in one of the rooms sorting out what was going with me versus what was going with the moving truck, my sewing machine was supposed to go with me. Well, weren't they very sweet? They sent the sewing machine cover with me and then put the sewing machine in the box and took it with them. So anyhow, I've been keeping busy anyway, got lots of plumbing issues going on here at this house, so we'll have a plumber here tomorrow. So I was given a temporary Wi-Fi box, and they're coming back tomorrow to replace that. So lots of things happening, as well as trying to get hundreds of boxes unpacked and emptied and piled up. And recycling day apparently is Monday. So, and the recycling box is full from the prior tenant. So, the scripture that God will confound the wisdom of the wise. Let me think. I don't remember where that is. But, there's also the place where the wisdom of the world is foolishness in God's eyes. Here's Elly. Hi, James. Hey, Elly.
Hey.
So,
what did I miss?
I heard an interview today with Shepherd somebody or other. His website is I wanted you to know this, Elly. I was going to call you, but I fell asleep. IntelliHub.com is his website, Shepherd somebody, and he was interviewed by Paul Begley during the second hour today. And he mentioned that one of the main reasons, yes, we went after oil when we were in Iraq, but the main reason that we went in there was to get the Sumerian information about Planet X, Nibiru, Planet 9, whatever they call this planet that has this 3,600-year orbit, elliptical orbit. And so they were wanting to get information about what happened to the Earth the last time it came around. So he was sharing a little bit of information on what they had discovered, and he was talking about the underground base at Denver Airport and who's going to be there, and he knew a lot more about it than somebody he was talking to. And anyhow, they were a little freaked out that he knew as much as he did. So it was an interesting interview. He's an interesting person. So that was it that I had. I just said I hope nobody here of our group was affected by the tornadoes yesterday. I understand 33 have died from it. So, and this guy was saying that this COVID-19 whole thing is actually an exercise and a practice for what to do. Yes, they're practicing for a pandemic, but he said that there's really, in thinking about this planet coming through and so on, that they're, the FEMA camps are still being built and so on, and so they're thinking that a lot of that has relationship to what's happening in the heavens, and that we're not going to see it for a while. So, or chances are that you won't see it with the naked eye. Who knows? I've heard that there are people in southern Chile who are able to see this planet that's coming, but it does cause magnetic pull, gravitational pull on the Earth, which causes a lot of changing. And anyhow, it can cause the pole shift and so on. And the Bible talks about the world, the oceans rocking and rolling like a drunken sailor. So thinking that might be part of it. And I have to come back to what I've said many times in the last couple of weeks. If we live in fear, we give Satan the right to go before the throne of God in the court of heaven and do to us things. At the end of the book of Job, Job said, "The thing that I feared most is what came upon me." And so we need to be focused on faith, not fear, and I just wanted to repeat that. Nibiru is one of the names, yes, for that planet. Some call it Planet X, some call it Planet 9. It goes by several different names. So that was all I had. Elly, you can take it away now.
Okay. Wow. How long has it been there?
The planet?
Where it could be seen?
I heard 2 years ago that there's a big telescope in Chile that they thought they were seeing it 2 years ago. And what happens is as the orbit comes around the sun, it'll go behind the sun, and then as it comes back from behind the sun and heads out back into outer space, that's when it gets closer to the Earth, and that's when it affects a lot of things. Yeah, and it starts to whip as it goes past the back of the sun. It whips around and comes much faster at us. So what they were seeing in Chile was this planet approaching the sun, not having gone around the backside yet. And so, but the orbit is approximately 3,600 years, but it varies. And so, I mean, I've been hearing about this since 2015, that they were anticipating its imminent arrival. So James is asking if you looked at decodes with Gene yet. I haven't yet. I haven't had a chance yet. So
I've been looking at the one just in Idaho because it's really the only verifiable one and I don't know if it's a military underground base, but they were saying a mining type that had crumbled during the first massive earthquake there. So I'm still trying to get some info back from it. So, we'll have to go, we'll have to wait and see. So, but the big thing on the news today is the whole yesterday with Trump. Did you see him with the timeline? Mary Ellen, did you get to see the briefing?
I only saw parts of it after the moving truck left, and so I just got in on the tail end, so I didn't get to see the whole thing. No.
Yeah. Basically, I'll tell you what pretty much happened. The media, and think it was a lady from CNN, was just really hounding at Trump on his timelines. And what they were saying, that he did nothing from February to start getting masks and equipment and tests and all of that out. They're trying to screw up the timeline. And the thing about it was, it's they need to be looking at Fauci. They really do. Just me looking into him and how far he goes back with the Clintons is one thing. But the thing with Fauci is he has been through 6 presidents and one of the top scientists, or someone that works in study of infectious diseases. So he is top of the line. And, we have given him medals and credibilities for a very, very long time. He has been through, think of all the stuff he's been through, AIDS for one. And, they never put in a huge effort into AIDS like they've done this virus. H1N1 swine, Ebola, SARS. There's even some down in Africa that they were trying to contain. And he is supposed to be the top person for the country. And he didn't see this early on. In fact, if I remember right, when the first set of doctors and scientists went over to China to see what was going on, I don't even think he was on that trip. That's something that he should have been on, and Burks. Both of them has been in this line of field for decades. And why he didn't see any of this with looking at previous flus and how they would break out, how they would run their course. It's amazing Trump hasn't fired him. I mean, this is probably why he mentioned it the first time. He did tweet out yesterday, day before yesterday, about it again, and I don't blame him. Now, the new thing that came out was in the news, and this came out about 2 hours ago, is they have now found out that the Chinese Wuhan lab has been using bats to look at the coronaviruses. And they have now caught them in, they say as far back as 2018, in having this virus, and how it was dangerous at that point, according to some scientists. That's probably why, if you guys remember, the very first scientist died, weirdly. I don't know if we lost her or she's on, looks like she's like on standby, I guess.
Yeah, I did not mute the mic. I just muted the camera.
Oh, okay. Why? What are you doing? We caught her doing something. We caught her doing something, folks. Mm-hmm. So, so this is very suspicious that now they are going to come out, and this lab is known for studying all these bat viruses. And they have even been found all the way back to SARS. So now we are looking at that they are the cause of the last few viruses that have hit our country. And they are the reason now. And there's no denying it. They, according to this, the U.S. Embassy warned the lab about the risks they were taking. So even the U.S. Embassy there, it doesn't say exactly who in the embassy had warned them, but they knew this was going on. They knew they had done SARS. So, we are looking at it now being a Wuhan virus for sure, and the media can't change this no more. They're just going to have to finally say that this is from China, and they're the ones that caused it. Yeah, I seen it, James, and we're really looking into it. But like I said, the only thing I have for that is the folks that were there. So then the media he showed the slideshow. I don't know how many of you watched the briefing yesterday, but in between what I seen there and what I had in my own notes, it started really January 11th is when China first said that they had this virus. And they were saying it, they had it there and we seen it there, but they weren't really sending us any info on this. January 20, I'm reading my, okay, January 20th, we had one case. That's when we found the one case. And they were saying it wasn't even severe enough to like an ICU. And so what we were seeing then is Trump then decided to jump on it on basically about the 21st. And he started looking into it. And this is around about the time that we were interested in it and started sending those doctors and the scientists over to China to see exactly what it was about. By January 31st, we had 7 cases here. So, you know, that really isn't much, okay? For what we didn't know nothing about. January 22nd, Trump declared an emergency, and he wanted the travel ban. Of course, the media that evening on the 22nd had said he was a racist, a xenophobe. He didn't know what he was talking about. This was just some weird flu, and China was even getting over it. Now, by February 1st, when Trump had came out and said we were going to have to keep those over in China, remember we weren't going to fly them back? And that was right about February 1st. Well, in that response, Biden, Pelosi, and even Nadler had came out saying he was fear-mongering. And by February 3rd, Pelosi was inviting everybody to Chinatown and to walk through San Francisco to show that this virus was nothing but a little flu bug.
Elly, on that, the thing with San Francisco and nothing but a flu bug, I've heard someone say that California was not going to be hit as badly as other parts of the country for some reason. Was she assuming that with inside information about that?
What my family says coming out of there is they have it probably just as bad as everybody else, but it's all in the cities. You know, like Elly, San Diego, San Francisco. Sacramento really isn't that bad, but when you got to realize anything above Sacramento is all mountainous and little itty bitty towns. Everything below Sacramento is all farmland and spread out. So that, I think, is why. I think that's what saved it, to be honest. It's just the landscaping alone. Because there's a bowl around, when you get in between, let's see, it's Fresno, Modesto, Stockton, Fresno, Modesto. Once you get below Modesto, above that to Sacramento is farmland. Below that, you get into like what they call, remember I tell you about the Santa Ana winds? It's almost like a bowl that it socks in, because when you come over one of them mountains to go into towards LA, you can see the smog that is held in by the bowl. The same way when you come down from Tahoe into Sacramento, once you get to a certain mountain, you can see the bowl of the smog. And it seems that's where all those are. Like where my sister Beth is, she's in the Bay Area, but like Fairfield, Vacaville. And they really don't have it that bad. So I think that's what saved them. And I think, to be honest, I think it scared the hell out of Newsom, and he made sure they had all the equipment they needed. Because if you remember right, he was praising Trump on everything that he promised he did. And we never did hear if he used the ship or not down in San Diego. I'm probably going to have to ask my friends down there.
I have a couple questions or comments. A friend of mine posted this morning an article about small businesses in small areas, small, rural towns, or not rural towns, but small towns and small businesses, and how this is killing the small communities. And she observed, I wonder if that's intentional to get everybody to move into the larger cities, because they can exert way more control in the large cities. And you're on city water, and they can taint the water, they can turn off your water. versus being out in the country where you have, you're more self-sufficient. I thought that was a really interesting.
What towns was it?
It was just a comment about how, the shutdown, if you're not considered a non-essential service, that it's really causing problems up for these tiny businesses, little mom and pop shops on the main street of small towns, really creating a problem, because they can't hold on. And then what do they do? So my friend was observing, I wonder if this is a way to force people into cities. I mean, I've known since the late 90s that was their goal, that they were going to have, block off. They think everything should be natural, and nature and humans, whether you're living or non-living beings, are equal, and therefore we shouldn't be eating anything natural. We're not supposed to eat the beasts of the field, or the birds of the air, or the flora that grows around us. We're not supposed to eat that. We're supposed to eat artificial stuff. And so they're creating this artificial food that won't support life. You've heard about that, right?
Oh, yeah. And Michelle's there in Sacramento. That's a really good source. Yeah, my sister Beth used to live out in Fair Oaks off Dewey Drive, so she probably knows exactly where that's at. Am I right, Michelle? Is it hitting the cities, the inner cities, or the big cities more than the smaller towns? That would be one to find out from California. But pretty much even here, we're sitting at 10 in the hospital right now, and they're fixing to, according to what I got today, they're fixing to release 5 of them. And all the ones they did the testing on, the ones that have been admitted to the hospital, are about 10, another 10. So the rest of them are okay, When they did on this with New York Times on the 5th, they were saying it wasn't safe to travel, or they said, oh, wow. On the 5th, the New York Times and all the stations were saying it was even safe to travel on boats, on ships, on cruise ships. They were encouraging it. And it was even later than that even Biden had mentioned to go ahead, that it was okay. So they were trying to get people on cruise ships here right about the first part of, we're real close to when those first few ships were starting to show signs of it. And they were even saying Trump is wrong. Everybody can fly. Everybody can get on the ships. And, that's what really concerned me was their push of the ships. Like I said, there was a close to what they had reported basically from January until the middle of February it wasn't a pandemic. It wasn't nothing. In fact, it wasn't even a contact thing. And then there has been a date that everything has been recorded with the State Department that Trump has done. And you would not believe all the stuff he was doing. And when he went off on that CNN lady, I mean, he was really rough on her. And it was good to see him finally say, I ain't going to put up with you guys no more. If it has multiple. Not necessarily, James. No, hon. Those can be aftershocks, and usually if they're piled one on top of each other, it's because when you got the 2 plates, okay, and they move, right, and they get to where they're stuck. Well, you got to remember it's like a ripple, okay? So when it gives, right, it's going to cause the ripple, but it's going to cause a few little bit more quakes until it settles down. Okay, that is pretty much how you get your aftershocks. And you can get is up to 40 of them after a big one. And if that crumbled underneath, and there are a lot of cracks up there, there is going to be aftershocks for a couple weeks. And not only did they have one good jolt there, but they've had 3 that are 5 or better. And so, we just gotta wait. Now, heart can cause the normal heart that will put out vibrations can cause in between a 2.0 and a 2.8. Fracking does the same. So you really, really, really got to look at what is on, your Google Earth. If you see an earthquake, zoom down to it because you'll see the fracking wells. And this is why I'm against fracking, because one, now they're fracking and they're drilling into the side of volcanoes. And I don't know why they're doing that. And it's just dangerous. But James, do that. Get GPS, that Google Earth, and wherever you see the earthquakes at, zoom down to where that point is and see if there's not some fracking or if it's just clear area, because that's what we're looking for. So that's something that you could look into. I got Karen on that on it. And I even look, and then when Dutch Sense comes out is the other one to really watch. James, I'm going to send you his link so you can keep an eye on it, because you know what? He's even the one that was one of the first ones that said, you know what? There's a mine collapse or something that collapsed there. And so, you have to just kind of keep an eye on this. And it was the Obama administration that increased the fracking. They're saying 1,000-fold. Because I remember watching it up in Pennsylvania, and it was here and there, and then I heard about it in Texas, and I thought I was keeping an eye on it. But then it had just exploded. There's thousands of them. It looks like little suburbs from air until you zoom in, and then you start seeing the oil wells and the fracking wells. And, that is just, what they did and what Obama administration did was just wrong. It was wrong. And under the Trump, the clean air bill, I believe he shut down at least a quarter of them now. I'm hoping he gets the ones away from the volcanoes and stops that. So Mary Ellen?
Yes, ma'am.
The other thing is, you're going to like this. That's why I said, well, Mary Ellen, I got a call this morning from a judge out of California that was a friend of mine through school. And I was asking the question about the states going in and pulling people out of the church and arresting them. And that was my big concern. I know that's a concern with you too. And this was given to me as a tidbit of information that the states may be looking at federal lawsuits for passing laws covered by the U.S. Constitution. That they went above the Constitution as well as the federal laws on one, freedom of speech, 2, on the right to own guns, and the other one was unlawful taxes. And one was mentioned being Illinois for the taxes. The Freedom of Information Act was against the churches, and the other one was the guns for Virginia. And they are now looking at maybe some federal lawsuits over what they've done. And that they cannot make people not go to church because the country is opening. And the way this judge was talking to me, he was saying, if they are doing safe distancing, and the church is sanitizing, there is nothing that the states can do. It's no different from what they're doing in other places. So what do you think of that, Mary Ellen? Isn't that good news?
Yeah, who's doing the lawsuit? Is that something Fitton's doing?
The federal government is going to sue the state, and they can. They can take them into court for a violation of the Constitution.
Wow.
And if not, I'm pretty sure they're going to show the churches how to go after them themselves. And I mean, there is a lot of lawsuits going on back and forth. And I get this feeling the way he was talking that there are big corporations that are being sued federally also that has to do with some big players out in California. And it's due to the same thing: freedom of speech, unlawful taxes, and the guns. So I'm not real sure. So there's corporations that are being sued. There are people that, even I think maybe the people in Virginia might be able to do a class action. So these lawyers are going to get rich. And the other thing that came out, let's see, the opening of the states. And it really looks like they're going to pick certain cities. And what came out of Little Rock today, Mariella, is our whole state might open. So we might be back to normal here. And then they mentioned a couple of at least 7 more states that could have a lot of openings because they're so rural, or they had very little to none of the viruses at this point. But they want to wait for 2 more weeks and see what the numbers are. And you have to be, they're hoping under 7 for each state that can be opened, or under 10, they're going to be lenient and just keep the major cities with the most cases under wrap. Or, pretty much they're not going to be able to move around.
I understand.
The thing is, Mary Ellen and everybody, this is a big task for all of us, because the first states that get opened up to where we get to move around, we're the model for the rest of them. And if we all screw up and everybody starts crowding together and it rises, they're just going to shut everybody down for another month. So we really do have to, these states have really got to band together and come up with a really good plan with their governors. And, this is a big task on the governors from what I heard. And the governors are even looking at it. But unfortunately, Mary Ellen, we got Asa. We got Hillary's buddy. So I'm not sure what plan he's going to come up with for us. Doggone it. But everybody, if you're in a state, make sure your governor is going to keep safe distancing and go at this slow, please. Because if we're the models, we got to be able to prove to the rest of the country that we can open back up. Otherwise, deep state's just going to close us up. And we'll be closed till, who knows, January? And we can't let this happen. So anyway.
Well, my concern with suing the states is who pays the bill, the taxpayers.
This was unlawful taxes. So I'm thinking it was, what they did is, I know that the Chicago mayor did some taxes and ended up taking them, embezzling off taxes that were put into place by, I think it was her, and she walked away with the money. And I'm thinking that might have happened to, who was that senator? Him and his wife, Cummings? I think Cummings.
Yep.
I think that's what they did too. Because you raise taxes, and it's written, you can just say, throw in another 1%, and they could just take it for any program that has leftover money. So. But yeah, the income tax, it's unconstitutional. But I think when I heard unlawful taxes, That's what I assumed it was, is the funneling. And they're all getting caught up in it. You know, one after one, they're coming down, either mayors or that and pedophile, the pedophile issue. And, you know, the other thing is, it seems like the media is going to let Joe Biden off on this lawsuit he's got. And if you guys read, I think her name's Tara, if you read her charges that she has, it's horrendous what he did. I mean, it's pretty nasty. And you know, and they're saying, well, the women that have these complaints, and those women, or the women and girls that had the complaints, didn't realize that he was just kissing and touching them, and and they were okay with it. And you know, the first thing I thought of, Mary Ellen, was that nine-year-old, that little 6-year-old that were pulling away from him. That don't look like they wanted that. That's sick.
You're
And
talking
this
about
was New York Times that did this, that reported this, that it was okay, that you know, he would, the little girls were okay with this, and the women were all right with the groping. And I don't know. I don't know what any woman that would want that, you know, or a little girl to, you know. And then they were saying that this really shouldn't be in the media because she's really not known. That was the other one they said. And then the other one was, you can't compare it to Kavanaugh because, see, we reported on Kavanaugh and it became popular. So we had to carry on with Kavanaugh. But her, you know, she hasn't been in the news only because, you know, we didn't think the story was interesting. So really, she's not that popular. So, and that's the other thing. And they're doing this on Twitter, of all things. And it just, you know what, Mary Ellen, they're going to protect him all the way. All the way. And look at what they did to Kavanaugh. And that was, oh, she kind of sort of remembers. And a friend of hers that's a witness didn't remember it at all. And these little girls are remembering it. Not only that, but we got the little girls on film of him doing it. But according to the New York Times, if a man kisses, hugs, and rubs and sniffs on a little girl, that's just okay. So here we go. It's okay to do that. I don't see how they're going to do this. And I keep hearing Hillary up in circles with him again. And I was looking for where she was, and it sounds like she's kind of sort of around with Biden. I don't know if I like that. So there's a good possibility. Now, Mary Ellen, here's something to put by you. I had this sent to me by one of my viewers. What if they do let Biden do this teleconference thing with him, what he's doing right now, but when he actually comes out, they use a clone for him to do everything after that, but keep this televised and away from Trump? What's everybody think of that one? I said, you know, I never thought about that, because if it's like us sitting behind a camera, you know, they can get those clones pretty close. And he wouldn't stutter. He would remember. They could program it to anything they want. One of them excellent little robots they got out right now. Or even a clone. Ain't that weird? And I don't know if it was meant to come to me as info, or for, you know, I just kind of said, well, because it's somebody that has given me info before. And I was like, you know, I'm going to have to think on that one, because if they try to push this to past the elections, and they have to stay behind cameras, you know, Trump and Biden for the debate, that can easily be the case. I never thought of it.
Wow.
The city is giving Franklin Graham a hard time for being in Central Park. Well, Franklin Graham built, Samaritan's Purse built one of the hospitals up there in Central Park.
You know, I don't know about Ruth, but you know what? The media started kind of saying she was dead, and this was the mainstream, about the time she took the side of Trump. And supposedly she has sent quite a few messages to Trump on support, and so has Clarence Thomas, of saying that the Supreme Court really does favor him on what he's doing for the country. But it wasn't the fact, oh my goodness, and he even had a thing on the Federalist a couple months ago on this, that it's not that they're going to side with Trump on everything. It's the fact that they support his patriotism of the country, and they really do side with him on constitutional issues. So I think that's what really upset the deep state was, if they did kill her and it's something in a clone in its place, I think it would be let out that she was dead. I think the woman is just one of them things that is like the Timex. She just keeps ticking. I mean, I couldn't dream of even listening to her or watching her for a long period of time, because I just can't see her hanging in there much longer, or even hanging in there to make it through trials. But no one's letting any words out about how she does. It's just really super quiet. And they all go out the back. They all go out individually into different cars, and they are hiding them. So who knows? We might have half a dozen of them that aren't really all there, and we wouldn't know. There's quite a few old ones. Fauci reminds me of those little trolls on the side of the buildings and over there in Europe. I just wait for the little pointy ears, and him squatting. The indictments, there are lots of them. You can go to the Department of Justice, I believe, is where they start listing them. And I've been through that list, and a whole bunch of them it looks like a bunch of cartel, a whole bunch of the child traffickers. And every once in a while, you'll see somebody with a name that, you think's kind of familiar. And I know they've gotten a few city attorneys, a couple of police chiefs, but it's really what you're seeing in the news being busted for the child trafficking, or the ones that are getting caught embezzling stuff and government money or state money. But the names are on there. There's got to be that many. I'm going to say at least. I mean, I went down the list of thousands trying to scroll to see. I was looking for Comey myself, but I didn't see Comey. But I went through and looked and looked and looked, and I swear one of them was like one of the Mexican presidents in Mexico. And I believe it was one that Trump had seen, but I'm not sure, because I run the names and I see them and I see what they do, and it's like, well, maybe the name wasn't familiar, but then I read so many articles, and a lot of them, when I found Atkinson that day, I had seen him in documents, and then it was like I seen the name again during the Ukraine thing with the whistleblower. It was brought up again, and I thought, why is Atkinson keep popping up in these documents that are against Trump for some of this collusion, and now the Ukraine, and then even some of the whistleblowers with the impeachment. And then I realized who Atkinson was, and he was IG. It was like, oh my gosh, he's been crooked too. But he's one you really don't hear about in the IG. You hear, the other ones, the more popular ones, but he signs a lot of stuff. And, no wonder Trump fired him. I would have fired him too for everything he had signed off on and not even looking at documentation. So, that's what I mean when you go through the list at Department of Justice and you just see a name and it's like it clicks, but then it just doesn't make any sense when you start looking it up. But yeah, this is the most I've seen because I was looking during the Obama for Holder at one time and the list was small. It was like 25 names maybe, and then there'd be 50, then there would be like 10. But this with Trump, it's massive. So I think that could be what is going on with the indictments that they're looking at. But from the looks of it, they're going through and they're prosecuting them and shuffling them through a door almost. How old is Henry Kissinger? Oh man. Mary Ellen? I mean, he's older than Nixon. I think he's in his late 80s, 90s.
I'm
He's
go-
a freak.
My phone's not working real well today. I'll find out.
Yeah, 90. Yeah, he must be. He is old. I mean, like I said, I think he was older than Nixon. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe they were about the same age. I mean, in his younger days at Bohemian Grove, he looked okay. He wasn't like all handsome, but and now he just looks like he's like Ruth Ginsburg, like ready to fall over. Some of them are. Even there is that other court justice that's really old. And we got to start getting rid of some of these older politicians. Was it, isn't Biden 78?
Yeah, he's older than Trump.
Yeah, he's like 78. And oh my goodness. And there's quite a few of them that are Democrats that are really, really old. When you start looking at them to vote, that gets scary.
Kissinger is 96. That's what I thought I had read recently.
96? Wow. Wow.
And Hillary calls Kissinger Heinz because I think he's of German descent, and Heinz is the German for Henry.
Yep. Yeah, we definitely term limits. And every time I see that at my polling booth for term limits and I sign it and I look at the guy and go, when is this going to make it through? We can't have this no more of Hillary and her friends, term after term after term and us being ripped off. And thank goodness what's going and hitting the pavement right now are everyday people. There is a rise in it that are running for office on Congress, a lot of Congress and representatives and mayors, even, attorney generals for the state. I don't know about here, Mary Ellen, but the ones where, like California and New York and Louisiana, Texas, up there, Dearborn even, they are like firefighters, they're homemakers, one's a teacher, one's a piano teacher only, of all things, a business owner, and they are ahead in the polls because what they're doing, they're going door to door. I don't know about now, but they were. I mean, so it's surprising that their numbers are just going up, just going door to door because they don't have all that funding.
Yeah,
and then they're getting people that are politicians looking at them going, we'll give you money. If you're beating them, we're going to give you the money. Pelosi is in deep because there is one lady that's a Democrat that looks really good that's running against her. And two, on the Republican side that put her to shame. She's not going to stand a chance. They're all going to be going bye-bye unless they rig the election. And of course, Tom Fenton's going after him.
I didn't get a chance to tell you guys yesterday, but I got a call from somebody who said he's been paying attention to the numbers that they keep reporting. And he said he was just shocked at how Illuminati related the numbers were. He said so often the numbers will add up to 11 or add up to 9, which is multiples of, the 333 or 666. He said it just seemed like this was some kind of a operation that was very much involved with Freemasonry or Illuminati or something like that. So we've had people commenting in here, and so we're at the top of the hour. I don't want to go over, so we can make sure we can go to the end of the month. So I'm going to say thanks for being here. As far as I know, Larry does not listen because he only uses his phone for phone stuff, not smartphone, internet kinds of things that I know of. So part of the issue is because the screen is so small for him. So anyhow, thanks for being here. We will be back tomorrow, and yes, I know, MW. I'm looking at the chat. The chat. Thanks for being here, and you guys. I have to say, I want to say thank you to all of you who are faithfully hanging with us. We've got 61 today. Boy, that's a bigger number than we've had in a while. So thank you for being here, and I am thrilled that someday I'm going to have a chance to report to Larry how aware you guys are of what's going on and how you see the deeper meaning behind what's uppermost in the news. You are aware, you're awake, and I know Larry would be so incredibly proud of you if he could see the chat and what's going on, knowing that you are interacting politely with one another, you're supporting one another, you are educated, you're paying attention, and I just want to say thank you. I'm proud of you. And on that, I'll say goodbye, and we will talk tomorrow. God bless you all.